The best way to oppose the Trump administration is to imagine that we are at war. I'm not talking about a Second Amendment solution. I'm talking about how you reorient your brain to reorient your synapses so that we can succeed at the midterm elections. If we see this as what it is, we're opposing a dictatorship who uses occupation forces in democratic cities, in blue cities and blue states, who tries to crush the First Amendment, who tries to crush freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, who tries to crush the rule of law. As we're talking truth to each other, as we're talking truth to power, he's using power against truth. If we reorient our brain that way, we will be successful. I break it all down for you about the resistance, the importance of it, and how to do it. Sort of a how-to hack on how to be disobedient in the right way, how to get into good trouble on my new podcast called The Intersection. And here's a clip. We are at war with the Trump administration, with his dictator policies, with his attempt to occupy democratic cities and states, his raids of political opponents through the FBI, his going after the independence of the Federal Reserve Bank, his trying to destabilize everything around him in order for him to be the strongman dictator. He said it out loud during his own pressers, where he mused to try to groom America into accepting a dictatorship by saying, I don't think all Americans think dictatorship is bad. We are at war. We're not just at war because Donald Trump is thinking about renaming the Department of Defense, the Department of War. I don't like defense. It sounds weak. We should go back to Department of War. We are at war. Well, you're on The Intersection with Michael Popok on the Midas Touch Network. But on today's episode, we're at war. And I think the sooner we reorient our approach and reorganize our brain to that position of offense, not defense, and recognize that we are at war to save our democracy, the better off we're going to be, and things will fall into place a lot better for us. Let's start with what I've said on my Substack Live for Legal AF just the other day, which I'm now developing more as my working theory, that Donald Trump is obviously grooming America for a number of things. Predators groom, and he is grooming America and trying to socialize things like dictatorship is okay. It's okay to use the D word. The D word for us is not dictatorship, it's democracy. And to have a president of the United States that occupies the Oval Office, who so casually throws around the term, I'm not a dictator, but I'd like to be, or I'd be one on day one, or this is, there's some polling out there that shows not everybody's upset about dictatorships. While he hosts in the Oval Office the president of South Korea, at the same time in front of the guy, compliments the strongman dictator of North Korea. And at the same time, here's my working theory. He's grooming America for a possible coup or takeover. See, you have to take over that which you do not currently occupy. So a president, we don't normally talk about a president having to occupy anything because that person is, by definition, the most powerful person in the world and the leader of our democracy and the leader of the free world, generally. So he doesn't have to worry about taking over states. The states all pledge allegiance to our constitutional republic, and the leader of that being the president of the United States. That's not the world that we find ourselves in with Donald Trump. He has split the country right down the middle. Not quite down the middle. 23 blue states or so, 27 red. I'm not talking population now. I'm just talking head count. And because the Democrats and the independents and the fair-minded people occupy one sphere that he's not in, he sees it as a threat. And so his number one goal is to destabilize not only democracy, but the Democrats' brand, trying to move to a one-party system, which is a page out of a playbook of dictatorship. And my working theory is that's the reason he needs to occupy with armed forces and our U.S. military states and cities. And I don't mean just any. I mean blue states and blue cities. It's occupation forces and threats of occupation forces, plain and simple. And he's being supported by what I refer to as the Red Army. The Red Army is the National Guard from red states being sent in to reinforce Donald Trump's assault on liberty, assault on states' rights, assault on sovereignty of the states and the 10th Amendment. That's what we're watching. DC and LA, a dress rehearsal. Dress rehearsal for a potential coup in the future. We are at war. And I don't say that either cavalierly or as if that's a bad thing, because this war, this dispute has been brought to our shores by Donald Trump and not the other way around. We didn't ask for it, but now that we're here, we need to fight our way through it. I mean, one of the things I teach or had taught lawyers that worked for me about how to practice law, I would tell them, we are not going to be the first litigation team or the first side to drag a case into the gutter or the sewer. But by God, if we are dragged into the sewer or to the gutter, we are going to brass knuckle our way out. We're at the brass knuckle our way out moment, everybody. You've got occupation forces in DC, reinforced in LA, a threat against Chicago, a threat against Philadelphia. 4 major cities are run by Black Americans. They are under assault. It's a war. Donald Trump is not only going after the Democratic brand, but he's going after the Democratic leadership, its icons, its idols, and a fair amount of Black leadership and Black female leadership. Does anybody think it's a shock that he's opened up federal probes as the chief law enforcement officer against Letitia James, the Black New York Attorney General, who took him down a number of times, including for civil fraud? Or that he's going after Lisa Cook now? I'll talk about that in the next segment. The Federal Reserve governor, who has her chair until 2038, also Black. Or Mayor Bowser in D.C., also Black. The Atlanta mayor, Black. Chicago, Black. Los Angeles, Black. And as I just outlined, many of them women. Which hopefully is a wake-up call for that particular community who doubled their turnout for Donald Trump. I mean, I'm not blaming anybody. There's many reasons that Kamala Harris did not win that election. We could do a whole show on it. We could do a whole seminar on it. But it didn't help that the Black vote went 8% to 16% in favor of Donald Trump. I hope now, seeing the attacks on these communities of color by Donald Trump, by his occupying forces and otherwise, will be that wake-up call, which will help us at the midterms. So you have the working theory that we are at war, that Donald Trump is trying through occupation forces, reinforced by the Red Army of the National Guard of red states, doing a test run in Democratic strongholds that he's aimed at, Chicago next on the list, as a test case, as a dress rehearsal, as a dry run, to see how much, in terms of authoritarian abuse, and how much of America he can put under his heel before he is stopped. We are at war. And again, I don't say that to make you feel bad, to make you feel like we're the victims. This is a war we can win, but this is a war we have to win. And I don't mean by taking up arms. I'm not talking about a Second Amendment solution. I'm talking about at the ballot box, in the streets, in the marketplace of ideas, in the public square, in our resistance in every way, shape, or form. We shall overcome this administration, but we have to do it working together. The socializing of dictatorship and normalizing of it has to stop as well. Mainstream media plays right into Donald Trump's hands because they, in the middle of this long news feed, you just see, that CNN or MSNBC or any of our competitors, I guess they're called, they'll be like, well, this happened and this happened and this happened. And Donald Trump said a lot of Americans are okay with dictatorship and this happened and this happened. Like, stop. Can we go back a few? That's how you report it? So they leave it to us on Legal AF and on Midas Touch to say our hair is on fire, say that we are at war. And these were declarations of war by Donald Trump. I'm not saying he's a dictator, although I am, but I am saying that other dictators think he's a dictator. That's why Donald Trump's closest relationships are not with Europe, not with our allies, not with the president of Europe, as Donald Trump likes to call the head of the EU. It's with dictatorships. It's the Orbans of the world. It's the North Koreans of the world. It's the China of the world and the Russia of the world. I mean, could he have bootlicked Putin any harder during his last stop here in the United States? From the military being forced to, U.S. military being forced to bend the knee in front of Putin, as Donald Trump, like a 4-year-old, applauded, apologies to 4-year-olds, applauded for his enemy, his adversary, before a big meeting. Okay. You know, what did Trump think? He was going to PowerPoint Putin to death? Is that how that was going to work? He was going to kiss his ass enough that Putin would say, okay, I'll stop bombing. I mean, a couple of days after the meeting, Putin bombed an American interest in Ukraine. Also on the way into Alaska, killed 11 Ukrainians in a bombing in Kiev, including a child. That's who we're dealing with. We're now 2 weeks out from the big meeting with Zelensky in the White House. Everybody kumbaya. Where is it? Where's the ceasefire? There's no ceasefire. Where's the peace deal? There's no peace deal. As Donald Trump muses about being put on Mount Rushmore. Not kidding. By the way, that's never happening. I know we're at war, but that's not one of it. That's not happening. Chisel his features, his fat, jowly face into Mount Rushmore. Not happening. Not happening. But he muses about it, you know, among other weird tics that Donald Trump has developed over the years that he says out loud. So we then watch, my other working theory as I move down the chain here, is that Donald Trump has on his shelf a whole bunch of things that he wants to release, but only at the right moment. If he loses something big during the day, by the afternoon, he will take that thing off the shelf and he will announce it. So when he loses Abrego Garcia's hearing, we'll talk about that, and is forced to keep Abrego Garcia in America so that the judge, in the case Judge Zinnes, can conduct a petition for writ of habeas corpus hearing, and that's seen as a big loser, and he gets bad press about saying that some Americans are okay with dictatorship and complimenting dictators in front of the South Korean president all on the same day while he's hugging and almost French kissing the World Cup, the solid gold World Cup. Again, you know, this is a weird stew of a brain, and that's putting it mildly. What does he do in the late afternoon? He drops the bomb. I'm firing Lisa Cook. Federal Reserve, even though he can't do it the way certainly can't do it the way he's trying to do it. And that sucks the air out of the room on all the bad media reporting and the rest of it. His full frontal assault on the independence of the Federal Reserve. But he times these things. You watch it. If a bad news cycle hurts him, you know, he'll try to change the news cycle with something on his shelf, his bag of dirty tricks. It's just a bag filled with monkey wrenches. He just pulls another monkey wrench out and throws it. That's all. That's all he's got. The Ghislaine Maxwell release of the recordings of her interview is another prime example of my other working theory, that Donald Trump times the release of new information or new executive orders or new lawsuits or new federal probes to step on stories that are bad for him. Ghislaine Maxwell gave that interview more than 3 weeks ago to Todd Blanche, you know, about the Epstein child sex trafficking crimes. I won't go over the details. We did it on Legal AF this past Saturday, and I've done it in Substack Live. I encourage you to come over to Legal AF Substack Live as well. Great way to support what we're doing on Legal AF. We have about 80,000 people there now in less than a couple of months, and I'm doing these lives sort of like this, but I can do it at the minute, at the moment, at the market, pull everybody together, do a huddle, get 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 people together, and we talk about an issue, and then I put the video up for everybody to see during the day. I'm doing that 2 to 3 times a day, and bringing on guests as well. And we did a good, I think, analysis of having read the 300 pages of what it showed. So I won't bore you with the details here other than to say what's 300 pages long and filled with crap. And that would be the Ghislaine Maxwell lies upon lies upon lies and denials upon denials. Not only did she not take responsibility for what she did, she said there was nothing to take responsibility for. Nothing happened. So how do you explain the thousands of victims, including that were girls that were raped at the time by you and Epstein? How do you explain their existence? You can't. It's a inconvenient fact that she can't explain away. But that transcript was available the night of. I do this for a living. The court reporter will turn that over to you the night of. That was 3 weeks ago. They just dropped it 2 days ago. Yeah, they dropped it 2 days ago because they didn't like what was coming out of the Oversight Committee in Congress and bad news reports there against the Trump administration, with them going after the Epstein files in the Department of Justice and the hearings and all of that, and they needed to step on that story. Hence, Ghislaine Maxwell's transcript gets announced. So we're at war. And the way that we're going to win this war is to be together in community, in fellowship, because only together will we be able to defeat the Trump administration and overcome the Trump administration. It's the only way. And Trump knows that. And that's why he tries to tear us apart and put each of us at each other's throats in America, because he needs a seething cauldron of people upset with their neighbors in order to succeed as president. He's not the great unifier. He's the great divider. Popok unplugged. Popok unhinged sometimes, certainly unfiltered and not censored. Tuesday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Midas Touch Network, a new podcast called The Intersection. I want you to join me there if you can. Live recordings at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Tuesdays. Pick us up on audio podcast platforms like Spotify and Google. It needs a little loving, needs a little more support. We're doing great. A couple 100,000 people join us every week. But with your support, we will top the charts, which is very important to keep that kind of content on the air. You're here on Legal AF over a long weekend. Appreciate you being here. It's Labor Day weekend. Unionized labor is celebrated. And our union here together is celebrated. Till my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.